partners. Thanks for joining me here at the Pacoima Police Department. First time my little Scion pulled into this parking lot was November the 11th, 2014. Man, time passes so quickly. You have a seat back there in the back. Join the cadets. I was just about to tell them about an event that took place following that gut-wrenching Revolutionary War. We were negotiating in Paris with the British to sign that treaty. About halfway through these negotiations, we almost lost the peace 3,000 miles away right here at home, and would have had it not been for something that George Washington did that very few people even know about. As I always tell the people, young students especially, I'm going to bring you up to snuff on some things. These progressive scholars are rewriting history, but I'm going to let you know of some of the things that happened. Okay, anyway, George Washington had moved his little army to a town about an hour north of New York City called Newburgh. These guys were so tired from fighting. They were underfed, underclothed, underpaid. George Washington had written the Continental Congress begging these men to give him something concrete in writing. You made all these promises to my men. They're going to leave and I'm going to lose everything. Finally, one congressman wrote him a rather glowing letter that basically said, hang in there, we're going to sign a treaty, and when we do, we'll move on. And then the heroes of the revolution will be rewarded. Young leaders of tomorrow, George Washington took that letter, strode up to the front of the hall, turned around and shocked his men when he said these words, "Gentlemen, during the prosecution of this war, I've not only gone gray, but almost blind." He opened the left side of his coat and reached in his vest pocket and pulled out a tiny pair of glasses and put them on. This is the first time his men had ever seen him wear a pair of glasses. Then he opened the other side of his coat, reached in and pulled out that letter and unfolded it and held it close to his face and read it. When he finished reading it, he folded that letter, put it back in his pocket, and removed those tiny glasses and put them back in his vest pocket. He stood there for several seconds without saying one word, but strolled out of the building. Now, historians who report what happened that night tell us very little of what was in that letter, but they unanimously agree that in every diary, every man present had written where all in the room cried, because George Washington, a father figure, had shown them how vulnerable and fragile and frail is freedom, and by humbling himself in that manner, had shown them how vulnerable and fragile and frail is freedom. When they reported that to the rest of the troops, never again was there talk of mutiny among his men. So when we read in our history books about George Washington being the father of our country, that's not some hype from the 1700s. What he did that night, pouring his heart out to those men, literally saved America's freedom. But that's not all he did, as you've heard me say in the past. But anyway, now you know the story of the tiny pair of glasses. Now, as soon as this is over, go back and finish reading the rest of my report. And thank you for being my partners. I love you. Go get 'em.